So much for being here. We're just going to talk about our missions effort here at Forsyth Church of Christ. And this year, we added a couple new deacons, and one of those deacons is Brother James McConnell, and he is our deacon over missions. And so I'm going to let him kind of start things off before I get into our specific trip and let him talk about what we're doing with missions here at Forsyth.
Good morning. Richard says this has been recorded, so that virtually wiped everything from my memory. It's got me so nervous here. Matthew 28, 19 and 20 is used as a proof text by a lot of folks for foreign missions. Go make disciples of all nations, it starts out. And that is a scary thing, because to commit to working with other nations takes a lot of training, takes a lot of courage, takes a lot of sacrifice. And fortunately, when you look at those verses, you think, oh, that eliminates me, you know. Me personally, I've done foreign missions, but I'm glad I don't do it on a long-term basis. But I got to thinking about those words, and they are not necessarily the first time God spoke that commission to us. If you look back in Genesis chapter 1, when God created Adam and Eve, they were commissioned to rule. And so there's a lot of things that are not necessarily said there. God expected humanity to be an extension of his image in the world. And so just being made in the image of God is a scary thing as well. It doesn't take foreign missions to be challenged. It takes being a parent, it takes being a husband, it takes how you live your life at home, how you live your life in this church community, how you live your life outside, how you live your life at work. That's all scary stuff. And so when Daniel presents what a handful of folks from here have done, take note of the age range of the people that are represented there. We've seen some folks that are willing to invest themselves in something that is challenging. And I've always been encouraged by seeing foreign missions, whether it's long-term or short-term, because it challenges me to be God's image where I'm at now. And along that lines, the body here has opportunities. The children's ministry needs teachers. The Meals on Wheels needs somebody to commit just a couple of hours once a month to drive those meals, or somebody to help prepare some of those meals. There's opportunities here. So be thinking about that, because maybe unfortunately for the leadership here, and because of my age, I'm going to come to folks and I'm going to be saying, what ministry are you involved with? So if you want me fired, be talking to the leadership, okay? And so I challenge myself. I'm going to go do something that is scary to me. I'm going to go help Sally teach kids.
All right, I'm going to. All right, we're on this mic now. I'm so thankful to have Jim as part of our deacon team here. He he's got such a heart for missions, and I think he has a kind of a holistic concept of missions, which missions is a holistic thing. It's not just getting on an airplane and going somewhere where somebody speaks a different language. It could be as simple as walking down the hall to a kid's classroom, or dropping some stuff off for a child that needs school supplies, or anything like that. I think about, I've been blessed in my life to be able to have the opportunity for short-term missions. And what we mean by short-term missions is a week or two trip where you go down, you do a specific project or help a specific group of people, or you have some purpose in mind, and then you come home from that mission trip. And I've been blessed to be able to do that several times, and it's one of my passions. And as a matter of fact, when we first moved to Monroe, and we met with the leadership here, the elders and staff here, about kind of the job description, missions was a major part of that I thought would be good. I think it was Craig Rochelle who said, a church that is not focused on missions isn't really a church at all. And so I'm thankful for you guys. I'm thankful for the church here, because over the past several years, we've been able to involve ourselves in international missions. I think about people like Richard Myers, who was kind of a trailblazer in Africa, and had an impact on a whole country, a whole community of people all over the place. I think about my first trip to Honduras in 2003. That was my first trip, and I've been able to go back multiple times since then, and it's so, it's rewarding. Mission work is rewarding. It's rewarding when I go down there and see people that I've known for 20 years now. As a matter of fact, while we were there, Pablo, who I think there's a picture of him here in a little bit, Pablo, he's been around for about 16 or 17 of those years, and he had a baby in 2006. And I've got a picture from 2007 where I'm holding this baby, and she just had her 15th birthday while we were there. So I was able to bring up the picture of me holding this baby, and now she had her 15th birthday while we were down there. And so missions are not just, again, getting on an airplane and doing something crazy, like that. We're definitely called to be missionaries. I think about, listening to John's sermon today about the potter and the clay. We are called as believers, as disciples, to be convicted in our faith, where it means that we're going to do something. I almost ran out of content because Jim was saying the same thing. The Great Commission in Matthew 28. We've got that. But if you go back to Genesis chapter 12, when God makes a covenant with Abraham, the first thing he says, Abraham, when Abraham meets us, it's time for you to go. You're going to leave your family. You're going to, it was pretty extreme. And Abraham agreed. But he was told to go as part of his faith in God. Matthew 28, go into all the nations. We're told to go. When we're believers, we're told to go. I've got several more here. In John chapter 17, Jesus prayed. He says, as you have sent me, I send my disciples. And I read that this morning, and I was just thinking about, we've been on this Daily Trek of Discipleship series for a while, and it is something that is very important to the life of a believer. When we are changed, when we are transformed, it is not just we're going down the wrong path and we just stop and we stand there and just wait to die. That's what repentance is. We're sent in a new direction as believers, and that's why I believe so strongly about missions. And my personal passion is our mission effort in Honduras. There are a lot of other things that I really enjoy, but our ministry and our mission in Honduras is something that I'm very passionate about. John also put up the slide of Ezra, basically saying, I'm just not worthy. I'm just not equipped. I'm just not prepared. I don't know how to do these things. I thought about Isaiah chapter 6 this morning, when Isaiah has this vision, and he's in the throne room of God in this vision, and these angels are there. And the first thing he says is, woe is me, I am ruined. He's basically saying, I'm not supposed to be here. I am not equipped for this. I am not comfortable with this. And an angel comes down and touches a coal to his lips and says he's taken away his guilt. And the Lord asks, who shall I send, and who will go? And Isaiah says, I'm ready. Another group, this year's group, there's 10 of us. Again, I had the opportunity and the blessing to go. My wife, Brooke, was able to go with us, and my daughter, Hattie Beth, was able to go. Grady Lewis from here went, and Miss Mignon Riley went. Then we had 5 students. 3 of them were from the WFR ministry, student ministry. Dash Bannister, Kaylee Bird, and Hudson Ham. Then they had brought a friend. His name was Kason Gerald. And then one of my students from school, Ridge Coates. They were all 17 years old. And so we had this good group of kids. And the great thing about these kids is their parents didn't make them go. So the kids came to me and they're like, hey, we talk about Honduras. I talk about it in class. And Hudson, one of our students, went last year with the group, and he wanted to go back, so we got 2 of his friends to go. And I didn't know what our group was going to look like. We didn't set our dates till late. There was a lot of logistics that we had to work out with Esperanza Viva about when we can go, when were the weeks open. And I tried to arrange it so some of the kids I know wanted to go could go. And I thought we were only going to have 9. And I just want to tell this story real quick. One of the kids' name was Ridge Coates. And Ridge is a baseball player. He's a fantastic baseball player. And he said he wanted to go, but he couldn't because he had baseball. Well, it just so happens he tore a ligament in his thumb, and he had surgery, and he had a cast. And I was like, you ready to go? He said, no, I'm going to have this cast on. Won't be much help. Well, about a month before we went, I went and saw him. He had his cast on, and he thought he was going to be playing baseball the week that we went. And I said, so, you excited about your baseball stuff? He's like, I can't play till after the summer. I was like, well, you still want to go to Honduras? He goes, yeah, can I? Is it too late? I said, it's not too late. I said, you got about 3 days to turn your money in and get your passport ordered. And he did. He turned in his money the next day. He got his passport expedited, and he went. So God worked with this big time. He put this group together, and it was a great group, a great trip. All right, you can go to the next slide, Mr. Richard. All right, so let me get... So on the left is a picture from 2018. In 2018, we took our trip to a place called Toro Muerto. It translates Dead Bull. It's the town named Dead Bull. And it's in the middle. When I say it's in the middle of nowhere, it really is in the middle of nowhere. If you go about 5 miles east of where Toro Muerto is, there's absolutely nothing. No roads, no running water, no electricity for the next several hundred miles. So it's on the edge of the map. And there was a church there that had been there for a while that met in a home. And there was a church in Georgia that kind of adopted a village and helped with a school, build playgrounds, and took on the support of the minister. And so I heard about this place, Toro Muerto, where there was a church, but I had never been. I had been to Honduras about 16 times at that point. And I was like, I've never been there. And they're like, well... it's hard to get to. You have to go at a certain time of year. I was like, it can't be that hard. And so we waited. So finally in 2018, I said, I want to go there. And we talked to some people, and they said they really need a church building. They're meeting in a house, and it's an adobe brick house. And so what happens if you live in the mountains of Honduras, there's a rainy season, and if you build your house out of mud, it's going to rot out from the bottom up. Because the moisture is going to get on that dirt and it's going to break it down. And that's what was happening to this house where they were having church. You could see daylight through the bottom of the house, and the roof was leaking, and they would have church with umbrellas. And I was like, let's build them a church. So Forsyth Church of Christ, we spent about 8 months raising money to $11,000 to build a church. So when we went down there, this was the last work day right here, and that's as much of the church that we had built on our trip. The other picture was a couple weeks ago, and you can see the church right there that's built. They've added a fence on the outside, which was provided for by the church itself. They built their own fence. That's something they said they wanted, so they were able to raise enough money to put a fence around the church. So that's the finished product, and that's what it looks like. Well, not quite, but that's kind of what it looks like today. Where the group is on the left with all those people, there used to be just nothing there. It was just a flat ground with a little... kind of a little pulperia type thing, a little house. And then we were able to provide for and help them build a church. You can see when we left, the church wasn't close to being done. But because of the resources that were provided, they were able to provide a church. And now they're meeting at the church. And I also found out on our trip that in 2016, there were about 7 or 8 people that went to this church on average. Well, now there's about 30, so they're growing within their community. Kabeen, the preacher, was really excited about that. And so I've considered it a partnership or a brotherhood, to where Kevin is kind of on our staff here, but we never, he's working down there. He's a missionary. In my eyes, he's a missionary in his own hometown, planting a church. And, so we've supported him. We also, that week when we built the church in 2018, we also took on his support, and we'll talk about that more in just a minute. All right, you can go to the next one. All right, so this is just kind of a frame by frame of the progress of each day. This is what we did. We show up, that top picture, you can see there was nothing there. The idea was that they got this nice church. It's about 20 feet by maybe 35 or 40 feet, and it's a one-room structure. And they do kind of like we do when they have church. They go through the singing and the announcements, and then they send their kids to Bible class, kind of our children's church. But that's their Bible class time for their kids. Well, the kids didn't have anywhere to go. So if it was raining, then they would have to stay in church. And if you've got about 20 kids in church during the sermon, it can get tricky, especially if you don't have a nursery or a children's church, or all the things that we can do for our kids here. So when we asked Kevin what he needed, he said he wanted a fence, and they took care of that themselves, and they wanted a place for their kids to go to church. So you can see how we're kind of just building up the walls kind of day by day, and by the end of it, we had pretty much everything done except for the windows and the floor and the roof. So we had all the blocks laid for that. But you can see there's some of the stuff that we do is, it does take a level of skill. Some of it takes a level of strength. But everybody was involved in the bricklaying project in some form or fashion, whether you're shoveling or sifting sand or carrying rocks or carrying blocks or are you helping somebody else carrying water. There's always something to do. But it was physically taxing. We were tired at the end of each day. But we had Miss Minyanga with us, and we didn't want to wear her out on the side of this mountain carrying blocks and slinging mortar and things like that. And so she had the grand idea to assemble a Bible study for the women of the church. And so there she is, and there's her ladies' Bible class. And I want Miss Mignon to come up and tell you about this Bible class for just a minute. Leave it there.
Well, I went in total ignorance, of course. Where fools rush in. It never entered my mind when I went that these people had no concept of a Bible class. All they do is they do worship, and But I had prepared. We had literature that was, of course, written in Spanish, and I can say some stuff in Spanish, and I can sometimes, and so I had prepared. I spent weeks answering the discussion questions, writing them out, my answers in Spanish so that I could participate. But my original view of this would have been a discussion group with, like it is in our Bible class. We do a discussion question and ladies participate. So that was the first thing. The first thing that happened was that we went on Thursday to the Bill site, and I had been told that I would do the Bible class on Friday. But ladies started showing up for Bible class, so there had been some sort of miscommunication. So I didn't teach that first day, but then the second day they did come, and we gathered for the first time and got through kind of the little introductions and everything. And then at the Bill site, which was 15 feet from where we were sitting, they used some sort of power. They started using some sort of power tool. I think the only time they used a power tool the whole time. So of course we couldn't hear. And they had to go home anyway by this time, and because they had to leave in the middle of the day and go back and fix lunch for their men and for the children who are still at home. And so then that afternoon we regrouped, and we'd been going about 10 minutes, and it started raining, and usually it just rains for, 15, 20 minutes, maybe 30. I think it rained for an hour that day. The roof is tin, and there is no ceiling. So we could not hear anything. So we broke that up. And it's kind of a nice ending, though, after that, because I was just kind of sitting there, and just lethargy took over, and I was just sitting. And so the preacher's wife was sitting next to me, and she and I were just kind of in stunned silence. And so I just got the idea to ask her about her favorite Bible verse, and I told her what mine was, and we had a nice little back and forth. And then some of the other ladies kind of came, and we talked about favorite Bible verses. And I thought, well, okay, if that's the only way we can get them to talk, well, that's how we'll get them to talk. But the next day we did have class twice, in the morning and in the evening, and in the afternoon rather. And it was just, but like I said, it took me a while to catch on that they're not going to talk to me, in a class setting. And so I realized if we're going to answer these discussion questions, it's going to be my answer. So, which is not my style when I teach. I try to let everybody else talk, and then I throw out mine. But I feel like I made some deep friendships with that. And Monday was the third day was a little disconcerting, because our translator there was a miscommunication about that, and the translator wasn't there. And the preacher's wife assured me they could understand me. And I hated to tell her that was not the problem. And I could speak Spanish to them, but then they talked back to me, and I'm stunned. I don't know. But we muddled through, and they finally got the idea about speaking into my phone, into the translator, and we managed to do that. But I promised them our last little time together was a prayer time, which I don't know how they feel about it. I feel like it didn't go real well, but it did. It gave them an idea of how I conduct a Bible class with ladies. But I told each one of them, I promised each one of them, I took their names, that I would pray for them every day by name. And so I am now praying for every one of those little ladies who shows up, whose names I have. And I'm praying for each one of them by name, and I'm praying for that community. So I've found a whole bunch of friends there, of ladies who know that I'm praying for them. And the preacher's wife and I even had a little back and forth yesterday on WhatsApp. And she told me that she's praying for me. So I have, so now I have these friends across some miles, some distance, who are praying for me. But and I've encouraged them to try to get a ladies' Bible class. But I just thought it would be encouraging for them and help their little community grow closer. But they're pretty close-knit anyway, aren't they? They probably really don't need that. But it was such a rewarding experience for me to be with those ladies, and they have nothing. They're on foot. The church building, we wouldn't call it a church building, we call it a big cinder block room, and there's no running water and there's no electricity, but this is what they do. And so in fact, she told me that they're still working on the room, and that they haven't started having a ladies' Bible class because they're feeding the men 3 times a day at the work site. So the women are carting food by hand, like I said, they're on foot. Some of them, some of the men have motorcycles and they can hop on with them, but they're busy. The men are busy building right now. But what a wonderful experience for me to go and to be blessed by those ladies who are, in many ways, just as I look across them at our Bible class, just like us in our Bible class, just Christian ladies trying to study a portion of the Word and trying to do what it says. But thank you for the opportunity to go, and thank you for the congregational support that we have for this effort and any other effort that we would have across the globe.
All right, thank you, Miss Mignon, she's the toughest one out of all of us. I'll say that. she did great, and she went last year, and there was one time where I was concerned about not just her safety, but everybody's safety. We were on the side of a mountain last year, and it started raining really bad. But the rain, we did have some rain. Yeah, there it is right there. So this was during her Bible class, and you can see it just, it is a complete downpour. It kind of stopped everything, but it wasn't all terrible, They, when we're there, and there's a project going on at the church there, I've been there 3 times doing projects, and each time, that church kind of becomes the downtown, like the epicenter of activities in this village, and people come from all over the place. There's kids everywhere, and there's a little store that we run down to get water and snacks and stuff, and it's fun to buy the kids something. And Hattie Beth brought a bunch of temporary tattoos and put them all over the kids. They climbed a tree. We'll see in a minute. Got some coconuts and. But we got to spend time, and I think Miss Mignon hit on the main idea, the main theme. When you go, you think it's about travel, it's about money, and it's about doing work. But the main theme is relationship and friendships and brotherhood, and that's the result of it. And I think, in a couple of years, thinking about just this specific trip, I won't remember how many bricks we laid or how far we got with the project or anything like that. But what I'll remember is the people that we met and the people that went on the trip with us. And so what I wanted to do today is just, I'm going to lead into it just a little bit, let you take a ride with us to Toro Muerto and participate in a work day kind of virtually. So I put together a video, but before I say this, where we stayed was a compound. It was safe, and we had to drive about 20 miles to a dirt road, and then about 11 miles down a dirt road, 10 or 11 miles down a dirt road to Toro Muerto. And that doesn't sound very far, but it took us an hour each day. The road that we traveled on, the 11 miles on the dirt road, was perhaps the bumpiest, worst ride that we've ever been on. And so it took us over an hour the first day, but then we experimented with some physics. And if you go fast, will you just go over the top of the bumps or not? And so I think we got down to about 38 minutes on the last day. We got faster each day. But anyway, if you will, make sure the volume's up, Richard, and let's go to Toro Muerto. That was close. All right, that was a fun trip, and yes, that was pretty close when that cow tried to pull out in front of me. So that happens, and we try to take a picture after each day. The second day, we didn't get a group picture, but that's the first day, and then the second day below where there's not a group, and then the third day, and then the last day. So that was kind of the progress, of our. There were some barriers that Ms. Mignon mentioned. The noise, I don't even know where they got power from. There was a cord running up through somebody's yard, and I lost track of it there. So I have no idea where they got power, but that was the only time they did use a power tool was during Bible class. And you can see they're pretty resourceful. They made a jig to make the wires for the columns. They build a different way than I would, but it's their home, and so we just contribute. We just help where we can. The rain, of course, the translator issue. He just didn't show up the last day, so that was tough. And also we had a couple people have to fight bed bugs, and so we got rid of them. But there's always something that goes on a mission trip. It's planned, but it's not scripted. Things are always going to happen. Several of us, I know Grady in particular, had some digestive issues with the food, and I think we all did to a degree, but but it was fun, and I'd go back yesterday if I could. So that's not all we did though. We were there, I think 6 or 7 total days, 6 total days ago with a couple mission groups, and now they've expanded it. And when we arrived, we had a delayed flight also. When we arrived, I'll kind of tell you through the first 2 days. So our flight was delayed about 4 hours, which meant that instead of landing at 11 o'clock local time, we were going to land, I think, about almost 4 o'clock. Is that right? Yeah, it was almost 4 o'clock, and it gets dark around 6:30, and we had quite a drive. I mean, I think just going straight, we could have made it in about 8 hours, but it took us 10 on the last day we made the drive. But it got dark. By the time we didn't leave the airport till about 5:30, and traffic was a nightmare. And we made it about 40 miles, and it was supper time. And we stopped to eat, and we're like, we got to decide if because we had an Airbnb, believe it or not, in Honduras, but it was another 5 hours down the road, 4 hours, 5 hours down the road. And so we sat around and we talked, and Grady was driving the other vehicle, and I was like, what are we going to do? He's like, I'll get some coffee, I'm fine. I was like, well, let's go then. And so while we were driving that night, there's like a fad that goes on in Honduras to where they tint all their windows as dark as possible. And the van I was in was completely blacked out, the windshield, except for like a little square. But it wasn't even centered up with me. It was like here, so I was like having to drive at night to look out of this. And I reached up there and picked it, and I was like, we can pull this off. And so Brooke was sitting next to me. I'm like, rip it all off. I was like, I don't care. Like, we got to have some type of light. We got to be able to see. And so we pulled our whole tent off the front windshield. And then we finally got to the Airbnb that night pretty late. That messed up our plans for the next day. We were going to get up early the next day and then go. Well, I was like, we need to sleep in because it was a long day of travel. So we slept in. There was a little pool at this place. So Hattie Beth and Kaylee, the other girl, got up and went swimming. All the boys just slept until the last minute. And, so we stayed there. We ate breakfast, and then we went, finished the trip. And when we got there, it was, mid-afternoon, and we decided to go to the girls' home for the first day. And so seeing those girls, there was one girl there. She's probably 11 now, and I remember when she came to the girls' home, she had scars all over her forehead. Her mom would abandon her to go make money. However, she made money, and she would tie her to the bed, and it was just awful. But seeing her at the girls' home, she's in that picture somewhere. Her name's Stacy. And we play with those girls, and I've known them, seen them for a decade now. So it's a really neat thing. So we did that 2 days, 2 different days. The second day that we went to the girls' home, which was our last work day, they made us coffee and just really assured us that we were just welcome there anytime we wanted to go there. And the girls are well cared for. When we got there, they were doing their chores, and then they got done and played with us. But they just seemed really healthy, emotionally and mentally and spiritually healthy, along with being physically healthy, which they all came from just heart-wrenching backgrounds. So that was fun. You go there, it's fun and safe. And then the other picture up there, I got 2 things to say about that picture. I know we're about to run out of time, but that's Kevin, or Kabeen, as he's known to his friends. He's the preacher there that we started supporting 6 years ago. We had a chance to sit down and talk with him, and he did voice some concerns because the church in Toro Muerto is growing, but he preaches at another church, and it's just not growing. It's actually diminishing, and he says it's because of COVID. There's some other churches in town, but it's not where he lives, and the people don't know him as well, and he loves preaching. You know, he wants to continue the work in both places, but I believe that the church in Toro Muerto, where we built the children's room, is thriving, especially if you see the place, and like Miss Mignon said, they literally don't have anything. I mean, they really don't have anything. And one of the issues that she talked to me about was the first lesson in her Bible class was about credit card debt. And so she's like, we gotta figure something else out here, you know, that to relate the story, because they don't deal with credit card debt. But they're beautiful people. It's a beautiful place. The scenery's beautiful, and I promise you, they are not less happy in general than we are, even though they have nothing. So we've been supporting Kabine for 6 years, and he hasn't had a raise. And so one thing that we're looking at is giving him a raise. I'll go ahead and tell you, he makes $450 a month to preach at 2 churches, and we're going to look at giving him a raise to $525. But I say that because every week we have the mission baskets outside, the Honduras mission baskets, and the money that goes in there goes to support him and to help fund our projects for our mission trips. We're going to talk about next December and January. We'll talk about scholarships for the students there, so they can go to school. It's $330 a year. Last I checked, for kid to go to school that's above 6th grade. And so we want to look at really supporting this community. And, you know, it's just because we have an opportunity to. The opportunity was given to us to partner with this community. And we have the resources, I believe, to help them out. And I know we do in the past. So I don't know whether y'all know it or not, but y'all are heroes to these people because of your contributions. And those of you who have made the trip, and support the preacher. I mean, this is all something that we're all a part of. We're all a part of this mission team. And like I said, you didn't go maybe, or you've never gone maybe, or you won't go maybe, but that doesn't mean that you're not part of the mission team. And so that's Kevin. And the other thing I want to say about it real quick is that cup I'm holding, he's got one too. The last day we were there, they were like, well, hey, hold on, you know, before y'all leave, we got something for you. You know, and I was like, okay, well, you know, okay. And so he took off on his motorcycle, and he came back carrying a lady, and she was holding a 5-gallon bucket like this on the back of a motorcycle. And I was like, that's pretty talented there, because she wasn't holding on to anything. And they came out, and I was like, let me get that from you. And it weighed a ton. And so we set it on a table, and we popped the lid, and it was fresh fruit that had been diced up and put with water and sugar, and it was full to the brim. And they said, we want to give you, you know, something. And so we got our cups and we dipped it in there, and I mean it was delicious. It was all fresh local fruits that they had pulled out of their yard. And I look at this 5-gallon jug of fruit, and I'm thinking, you know, this would cost $300 or $400, you know, to make back home. So they blessed us with that. And then this morning, Kevin Kabine sent me a video, and I'm going to end with this, but. In this video, he walked around the church this morning. Like Miss Mignon said, they've got pretty much everything done except for the windows and the roof. And so if you remember what it looked like when we left, if you will, Richard, go ahead and go to the next one. And this is what it looks like as of this morning. So you can see that they've put the kind of stucco cladding on there and dressed it up kind of nice. But and they finished the pitch of the roof. And I think this is just about 30 seconds or so. But you can see this is, you know, that's what we laid. So I guess they're going to put a floor in there. They leveled it out. And they've got the supports in for the roof. So it may be, you know, in 2 weeks, they'll start having kids there. Hopefully some Bible classes, who knows. But this is a big area in the community. And I don't know how many people live in the community. Grady, Mignon, Brooke, maybe 800 people. What do you think? If that many? Yeah, it's just a small community, and it's a wonderful place. so I think that I want to finish with this as that closes down. I think about our walk of discipleship as believers and as Christians. And I know throughout the Bible it tells us that we're supposed to be convicted into action because of our faith. But that's something that I believe that we really, really struggle with. We're all busy and we're all anxious about things, and we all are in a rush, and we have difficulties in our relationships and in our lives and with everything else. But I don't think that there's anything more important in the life of a believer than to reflect the love and the grace that we have been shown because we're not worthy. And then now we're qualified to go, and we're qualified to do. Even if you can teach if you're not a teacher, you can build with blocks if you're not a mason. I mean, there's room for everybody. And Acts chapter 1, that's something we have a hard time understanding. And even the disciples of Jesus that were with him throughout his whole ministry and witnessed everything from the miracles to the crucifixion, they had a hard time understanding that they were blessed. And in Acts chapter 1, they go to Jesus after he was resurrected and before he ascended, and they said, pretty much, are you going to fix all the problems in the world now? Because they're still here. Are you going to restore the kingdom of Israel? And I can only imagine Jesus' response in his mind, just like, hopefully you'll get this one day. And he says, I'll tell you what, you are going to be able to get it because I'm going to give you the gift of the Holy Spirit. And then you're going to go. You're going to be my witnesses in Jerusalem and Judea and Samaria and to the ends of the earth. And so I encourage all of you to find somewhere, if you're not involved in a mission, to one, recognize that you are involved in a mission, and then think about what we can do as a family of believers to help the world around us, help impact the world around us. Let's pray, and then we'll be dismissed. Dear God, thank you so much for who you are. Thank you for all that you've done. Thank you for your word. As we look through your word, Lord, we see examples and commands, and Lord, I pray that we're not just academic when it comes to reading the Bible, but also practical, and let these things that you show us and that you teach us guide us in our lives, in our decisions, in our relationships. Lord, I'm so thankful for the opportunity to be a part of this church that has a missional mentality. I'm thankful for our friends down in Honduras that are worshiping today, and I pray a blessing on them and on their future. And I pray that we continue to grow as a church here, not only in who's here, but also in who we can help and who we can serve. We love you and thank you so much for Jesus, the ultimate sacrifice that gives us freedom and gives us life. And it's in his name I pray. Amen.